Well, that last week of October certainly was wild. We had torrential rain, hail, 39 degrees with gale force winds, and then dropping back down to the low 20. Aside from a little bit of hail damage and the onset of powdery mildew, surprisingly there has only been one casualty in our garden. The cheap arch finally snapped. Nothing that a few cable ties and star pickets couldn't fix though. In any case, if we want to keep eating from the garden, we need to keep planting. So here's what we're planting in our subtropical Australian garden this November. If you're new here, I'm Nikki and I'm on a mission to grow as much food as I can on a regular suburban block. I plant one bed of staple crops each month to ensure I have a continuous supply. The idea of these beds is to plant things that take 3 to 4 months so I can turn the beds over in that time. I do also have additional beds where I throw things in that take a bit longer, things like sweet potatoes, onions and garlic. Aside from the sweet potatoes, this month I will be planting the 2 beds, my staple bed plus a bunch of things that take a bit longer, but they should be a really good summer survival crop. So following on from some of the beds that we've planted out over the last 3 to 4 months, we finally cleared out our July bed. I did get a few more handfuls of snow peas out of here, which was really unexpected as they looked like they were dying. And I got the rest of the beets and the fennel out of here. I have planted out a cover crop for now, and I'm going to just rest this bed until I need it for replanting. From our August bed, we've been getting plenty of zucchini, but it is starting to struggle since the humidity has kicked it up. I received a bit of hail damage and the powdery mildew is affecting it. The cucumber flies have also found it, so they are stinging the fruit. Not much that I can do about that other than net the entire plant. The beans have all succumbed to mites. We've got plenty of beans around, so I'm not too worried about that. The bed we planted in September, we're starting to get beans and cucumbers. The corn is flowering, of course, when it starts to rain, so we'll see if we actually get any that will pollinate, because usually the rain damages the pollen before it can land on the silks. I have harvested a lot of lettuce from here, but I am now seeing a lot of it start to bolt due to the weather. Now, the bed I planted last month is going well. I am really shocked at how well the all year round lettuce handled that scorching hot day. With the humidity kicking up, I've also started to see a little bit of septoria leaf spot on my tomato. I am bagging all of the fruit individually to stop the fruit fly, but we've been picking loads of the basil already and the beans are just starting to flower. The other bed that I planted last month with the capsicums, eggplant and trombone tuno, I lost all of my capsicums and the eggplant to those dreaded greenhouse cockroaches that just chopped the tops off. I have replaced them a few times. Only 2 capsicums are still standing, barely. So I've just decided that this is going to be a sweet potato bed. So every time one pops up in other beds that I don't want it, I'm just moving them in here. The trombone tunos are doing well, aside from the constant stings of the cucumber flies. But we should actually be able to harvest these now that the skin has toughened up on them. These are great eaten smaller, like a zucchini, so probably a quarter of the size that they are now. But if you leave them like this, what I'm doing, they'll get more of a butternut pumpkin flavor, and that's what I'm doing to get these massive ones. As for our supply of capsicums, I am just going to do some in grow bags just until I get control of these greenhouse cockroaches. So now we're on to our November bed, which we'll be planting out today. I'm planting in the wicking bed that I previously had garlic in. I did do a cover crop last month and then I covered in black plastic for a few days just to make it die off. And then I topped it with a thick layer of compost and then mulch. And then I've just let that sit for about 2 weeks. This bed is going to be jammed full. We're direct sowing some zucchini, cucumber, beetroot, beans and rocket, along with some of the seedlings that we planted last month, which will include spring onions, perpetual gator spinach, lemon basil, and some beneficial flowers. This bed is 1.2 meters by 1 meter, and we're putting our trellis on our western side to protect the rest of the bed from that harsh afternoon sun. When planting out my beds, I do like to divide everything into grids of 30 by 30 centimeters to help me get the spacing right, but sometimes I get it wrong and that's fine. The main thing that this bed will be is zucchini. It is going to take over, there's no denying that. I'm going with this Coco Zell, which is a striped heirloom variety. With this zucchini luckily taking over, I feel like it's going to either track east or north seeking sun. I can redirect it to a certain degree, but just keeping that in mind, I am going to grow things that are fast growing next to this. So I'm going in with my lettuce and rocket. Hopefully these will be mostly done by the time the zucchini really takes over. For the lettuce, it is loose leaf season. I'll only do loose leaf varieties this time of year because they do tend to bolt very quickly. Rocket is also one that will bolt quickly, but this variety, the rocket salad, is a slow bolting variety. It has fuller leaves. They're not serrated like some of your varieties like a pronto. But if you plant it really densely and cut it low regularly, like a microgreen, you should get a few months of harvest out of it before it does go to flower. Also on this northern side, I'm going to pop in a 9x9 grid of golden beetroots. These are great if you hate the staining of a standard beetroot. I find them actually a little bit sweeter than your standard ones, but they're also great for harvesting for leaves. On the northwestern corner, I am going to pop in my lemon basil seedling, which we raised in the greenhouse last month. These are slightly more compact than your regular sweet basil, so I might get some flowers in here later too, but I'll just see how this grows. On the trellis, I'm going to go with the 2 cucumbers. This variety that I'm using is a market more. The skin of these is a bit thicker, which you'll either love or you hate. I find that I have to peel it to eat it because it is a little bit too thick, but I do find that they store really, really well in the fridge and don't go off quickly. As a divider between the cucumber and the zucchini, I'm going to pop in my perpetual gator spinach that I started via seed last month. Because it's a leafy green, it won't matter too much if it does get a bit shaded. I'm also going to pop in here my spring onions and my sweet Alice flowers. You could definitely direct sow some marigolds in here as well. On the edge of my zucchini zone, I am direct sowing my beans along the edge. I like to plant them on the edge so they overhang. They don't take up much root space. It's more the space of their leaves as they sort of spread out. These ones are Royal Burgundy, which are a purple variety. They're not as prolific as some of your others like a Strike or a Pioneer, but they are easy to find when you want to pick them. So my camera overheated at this point, so even though it didn't feel hot when I was doing it, I felt I better put a cover over this for a bit of protection to get them going. So I've just popped over an insect net, which is about 10% shade. In the last week, I've also popped in all of my sweet potato slips. So I'm going to try and train some over a trellis this year just to see if that affects size. Now is a really good time to also pop in your ginger and turmeric if you wanted to plant those. I received my delivery from Dally's, which is a fruit tree nursery based in northern New South Wales. They have such a good variety, particularly for subtropical fruit trees. I got a peach cot, which is a low chill peach that resembles an apricot. Apricot's one of my favorite fruits, so I really wanted to grow it. We don't get enough low chill hours here in our climate for a lot of the stone fruits, particularly things like cherries and apricots. So this one here is a good alternative. I did also get another Hawaiian guava, which I plan to plant out in the chicken free range area. We had to kill our other one because we put a carport where it was located. I like this one because it fruits rather quickly. I think we had fruit within that first year. And I like this particular variety because the fruit is a lot larger. It's easier to bag against fruit fly, and it's easier to get the seeds out, which a lot of people find off-putting when it comes to guavas. The other two things I got was some cassava and some taro, both of which I haven't grown before, but they are going to go in my next bed, which I'm going to plant out. I'm trying the strategy of chucking the chickens in garden beds before planting out to get those greenhouse cockroach numbers down. The chickens probably spent around 3 hours in here over the course of a week, non-stop eating these cockroaches. That's how many there were. So it's doubtful that I got them all, but I am hoping this strategy moving forward will help me at least get the numbers down so they're not taking out so many of my plants. I've also had an ibis visiting. I was hoping that he was eating them too, but turns out he's just been taking the heads out of my lettuce. Anyway, this bed is going to be my summer survival bed in here. I'm going with some non-standard varieties that are known to grow well in hot, humid climates. This bed is one of my largest beds. It is a 1.2 meter wide by 2.4 meters long. In here, I'm planting some cassava, eggplant, okra, jalapenos, ikama, taro, loofah, and basil. And hopefully I will get some snake beans in here as well. I just want to wait and see how my loofah grows. A lot of these plants do take a long time, somewhere up from 6 to 9 months to produce anything. So this bed will be tied up for a while, and I'm not going to be able to clear it out probably until July next year, which I might come to regret, but we'll see how we go. We're going in with the cassava on the northern side. It doesn't like wet feet, and I'm pretty sure the mulberry right next to this bed sucks a lot of moisture out of it. So I'm hoping that works well. This needs about a meter of space, so it is taking up the majority of this bed. On the eastern side of the cassava, I am going to pop in some jalapenos and basil just because I had heaps and they needed to go into the ground. We'll see how they do, if they compete too much with the cassava. Next to the cassava, I'm going to put in 2 okras that I raised last month and an eggplant. These okra are just the clems and spineless, and in the middle is just a Lebanese type of eggplant. Next to these, I'm going to pop a tomato cage in, and around it I'm planting the ikamas, which is like a Mexican potato that I grew last month from seed. I've grown them before, but I've never actually harvested them to eat. I've just chucked them in and forgotten about them. They have beautiful purple flowers, and they are highly poisonous. Everything above the root is poisonous. You only eat the tuber that it produces. On the eastern side of the ikama, which I'm going to use as a bit of a shade to plant my taro root. I think these would have been better in the aquaponics as they like it with wet feet, but I'll see how it goes. I've popped them next to the loofah, which I'm going to be training up and over the arch, and hopefully I will be able to interplant with some snake beans later on. I'm going to keep you posted on how this bed goes. I'm hoping this will turn into another set and forget summer combination like the sweet potatoes when it all just gets too hard. So I'm still producing food when everything else is just dying. As for the greenhouse, I'm not doing much this month. I do like to wind it back when it starts to rain and try and direct sow as much as I can. But I will get in some more basil, as it's always great to have to fill space when it gets hot and nothing else is going to grow. I've got a dark opal, which is a purple basil, and just your standard sweet basil. I did also upgrade the pots for my cherry tomatoes, which I sowed last month, so they'll be ready to transplant out next month. Anyway, that's it for what we're planting this month. If you want to follow along with my staple beds, I do have a bundle of seeds you can grab on my website. This one does include the start of our cool season crops, so it has a really good variety and makes a great gift for Christmas as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.